welcome to the deep dive. If you're tuning in, you're probably someone who, well, like a lot of us, is working towards more inner peace, maybe some mindfulness, self-love, really getting comfortable with who you truly are.
Yeah, and a big piece of that puzzle we often find is tackling those things inside that, trip us up.
Exactly. And today, we're diving into a big one, the fear of disappointing others.
Yeah.
You know that feeling, right? That
Mm.
sort of knot in your stomach when you think about letting someone down.
Oh, absolutely. It's a really common feeling, deeply ingrained for many people, and it can really cast a long shadow over your choices.
It's like that basic human need to connect and be liked gets twisted into this constant low-level
Right.
anxiety.
It dictates things without you even realizing it sometimes.
So for this deep dive, we've been looking at some really interesting takes on this. Nick Wignall, writing Psychology Today, actually calls it FODO, the fear of disappointing others.
A photo, yeah. We're also drawing on Leah Aguirre, also from Psychology Today, and therapist Kate O'Brien's work.
Right. And our goal today really is to help you, our listener, understand where this fear comes from and maybe get some practical ways to handle it. So you could live more authentically with a bit more peace.
Definitely. And Nick Wignall, he jumps right in suggesting this fear, AOVODO, is often lurking underneath things like chronic stress, anxiety, feeling overwhelmed.
Burnout even.
Yeah, burnout too. It's like this hidden driver for a lot of that negative stuff.
Okay, let's unpack that. He uses this example, which I think many people can relate to, of maybe a boss piling more work on you.
Right, the CEO example.
Yep. And you might think, oh, the problem's just too much work. But Wignall says, hang on, the real issue isn't actually just saying the word no.
Exactly. Saying no technically takes, what, half a second?
Right.
The hard part, the real hurdle, is that feeling that washes over you when you even think about saying it. It's the fear of the other person's reaction, their disappointment.
Will they think I'm not capable? Will it mess up my chances later? That kind of thing.
Precisely. It's anticipating that negative outcome and wanting to avoid it at all costs.
So you end up avoiding the boundary, not because the boundary itself is complicated, but because you're scared of how the other person will feel. And then you end up feeling stressed and overwhelmed.
Which is the irony, right? You're trying to manage their potential disappointment and you end up creating your own definite distress.
So, key point there. FOGO often hides behind stress and boundary issues, driven by fear of reaction, not the action itself.
And Leah Aguirre also picks up on this boundary point, highlighting how it affects all relationships, not just work. It really makes you think, where do you find it hardest to say no?
Which naturally leads us to think about, well, what are the actual consequences of living with this fear? Wignall uses this phrase, emotional opportunity costs. That really stuck with me.
It's powerful, isn't it? It's not just about feeling bad right now. It's about what you're missing out on because of the fear.
Can you give an example?
Well, his big one is staying in a relationship, romantic or otherwise, that, deep down isn't right. But you stay because you're terrified of hurting or disappointing the other person by leaving.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Think about the cost there, not just the current unhappiness, but the potential for a relationship where you could be truly happy and authentic. That's
Yeah.
lost time, lost energy.
Lost emotional availability for something healthier. Okay, so the takeaway is, FODO isn't just about the immediate discomfort. It can actually block you from better opportunities, better connections.
Exactly. And Kate O'Brien adds another dimension. She points out how this fear manifests. It can look like chronic people-pleasing.
Always saying yes, doing too much.
Right, overgiving until you're depleted. Or even hiding parts of yourself, your opinions, your needs, your true identity, because you're afraid they won't be accepted.
And the end result.
Well, ironically, she says it often leads to feeling worn down, exhausted, and actually quite lonely because you're not connecting authentically.
Wow. So trying so hard to maintain connection through pleasing actually leads to disconnection. That's
Right.
quite something. Okay, so if it causes all this trouble, where does this oboe actually come from? What are the roots?
Kate O'Brien has some really good insights here, looking at both upbringing and wider societal stuff.
Like childhood experiences.
Yeah, for instance, if you grew up feeling like you had to be the caretaker, maybe responsible for a parent's moods or for keeping the peace.
Ah, so you learn early on that your job is to manage other people's feelings.
Exactly. You might unconsciously internalize that your value, your worth, is tied to how well you please others, how much you do for them.
That makes a lot of sense. It raises a question, doesn't it? Can you see any of those patterns in your own past?
Mm-hmm. And another angle she mentions is not feeling truly accepted for who you were as a kid. Maybe mistakes were treated really harshly.
Or you always compare to someone else.
Right. That constant comparison, feeling like you're never quite good enough, that can definitely plant the seeds for a deep fear of disapproval later on.
And it's not just family, is it? O'Brien talks about society, too.
Yeah, those unspoken rules, the norms. If you fall outside what's considered normal, maybe because of your race, a disability, your gender expression, sexuality, anything really.
Then just being yourself can feel like you're constantly risking disapproval or disappointment from the world around you.
It can feel incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
But O'Brien makes a really compassionate point here. This fear, even if it's causing problems now, probably served a purpose back then.
How so?
Well, maybe it helped you feel loved or stay connected to your family or community. Maybe it even felt like a survival strategy. Recognizing that it might have been protective once can help you approach it with a bit more kindness now.
So, summarizing those roots, early caretaking roles, maybe not feeling accepted as a kid, and those broader societal pressures to fit in, all can feed into FODO.
Exactly.
Okay, so we get what it is, what it costs, maybe where it comes from. Now, the big question, how do you actually start to tackle it? How do you overcome this fear?
Well, Nick Wignall's core message is pretty clear. Like most fears, you have to face it. Willingly. Repeatedly.
You have to show your brain it's not actually dangerous.
Precisely. The goal is to prove that experiencing someone else's disappointment, while maybe uncomfortable, isn't catastrophic. It requires tolerating some of that discomfort for the long-term win.
Okay, it sounds like building up a tolerance, almost, like exposure therapy, but for disappointment.
Kind of, yeah. And he offers 6 really practical tips to help with this process. First one we sort of touched on, really consider the costs.
Remind yourself what FODO is actually costing you.
Yeah. Keep those emotional opportunity costs front and center. What are you missing out on? What toll is it taking? That can be powerful motivation.
Okay, that makes sense. Fuel for the change. What's tip number 2?
Number 2 is a big one. Remember, you are not responsible for other people's emotions.
Ooh, that's huge.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Leah Aguirre talks about this too. You are responsible for your own behavior, acting kindly, respectfully, with integrity. That's your side of the street. But how someone else feels in response to your actions, that's ultimately up to them. It comes from their thoughts, their interpretations, their own history. You can't control that.
Wow. Just letting that sink in feels freeing somehow. You do your best to behave well, and the rest isn't actually on you. Okay, what's tip 3?
Tip 3 from Wignall is to reframe the fear itself. See it as uncomfortable, yes, but not dangerous.
So acknowledging the feeling but not letting it paralyze you.
Exactly. The feeling of fear or anxiety, however intense it feels, can't physically harm you. Learning to tolerate that discomfort, to sit with it without immediately trying to escape it, is crucial for stopping it from dictating your choices.
Changing your relationship with the fear itself. I like that. Okay, number 4.
Number 4 is neat. Use reverse empathy.
Reverse empathy. How does that work?
Well, Wignall points out we're often much harder on ourselves about possibly disappointing someone than we would be on a friend in the same boat.
Ah, okay.
Imagine a friend is really scared to tell you something important, worried they'll disappoint you. What would you want them to do?
I want them to be honest, of course, even if it was difficult news.
Right. And chances are any disappointment you might feel would be way less intense than their fear of it. Reverse empathy is about applying that same standard, that same compassion to yourself.
Treat yourself like you'd treat a good friend. That's a great reframe. Okay, tip 5.
Tip 5 is about starting small. Wignall calls it the 30% version.
Like marathon training. Don't run 26 miles on day 1.
Exactly. Don't tackle your absolute biggest fear of disappointment right away. Practice tolerating the discomfort in lower stakes situations.
Like what?
Maybe offering gentle, constructive feedback to a colleague. Or politely saying no to a small favor you genuinely don't have time for each time you do it and survive.
You build that muscle, that disappointment tolerance muscle.
Makes sense.
Okay, final tip from Wignall.
Number 6. Watch out for fake guilt.
Fake guilt, as opposed to...
True guilt. True guilt, Wignall says, comes from genuinely violating your own moral code, doing something wrong. But sometimes we label other feelings, like sadness or maybe pity, as guilt.
Why would we do that?
Sometimes, he suggests, it's because feeling guilty gives us a false sense of control. Like, if only I'd said yes, I wouldn't feel this bad guilt. It makes us feel less helpless than just feeling sad that we couldn't help.
So distinguishing between I feel bad because I did something wrong versus I feel bad because the situation is difficult or sad.
Exactly. Recognizing that difference can help detangle those messy feelings. So, quick recap of Wignall. Consider costs, you're not responsible for others' feelings, reframe fear as discomfort, use reverse empathy, start small, 30% version, and watch for fake guilt.
Those are really solid, actionable steps. And Leah Aguirre adds some more perspective on just accepting that disappointing others is sometimes okay, right?
Yes, absolutely necessary sometimes. Her first point is about self-compassion, really actively practicing it.
Being kinder to yourself.
Yeah. Reminding yourself you're human, you'll make mistakes, not everyone will like your choices, and that's okay. Give yourself the same grace you'd give a friend.
That inner critic can be so loud, can it? Consciously countering it is key. What else does Aguirre suggest?
Second, try not to take everything personally. Someone's negative reaction isn't always about you.
It could be their stuff.
Totally. They have their own history, their own filters, their own baggage, as she puts it. Their disappointment might be much more about what's going on inside them.
That's a good reminder. We don't always know the whole story behind someone's reaction. What's her third point?
Third, consciously let go of the need to control how others feel or perceive you, because, honestly, you can't.
Right. Focus on what you can control.
Exactly. Your own actions, your own choices, living authentically according to your values. That's where your energy is best spent.
Shifting focus from external validation to internal alignment. And her last point.
Her final point ties into that. Be intentional and honor your core values. When you know you're acting from a place that's true to you, that aligns with what you genuinely believe is important.
Then if someone is disappointed, it stings less.
It tends to, yeah, because you feel more solid in your choices. You know why you made them. So Aguirre's points: self-compassion, don't take it personally, relinquish control, and honor your values.
Really valuable additions.
Yeah.
And Kate O'Brien, the therapist, she offers some extra layers too, doesn't she?
She does. She really reinforces that basic truth.
Mm-hmm.
You simply cannot please everyone, ever. Trying is exhausting and futile.
Just accepting that feels like lifting a weight.
It really can. And she strongly encourages reminding yourself actively that you are lovable just as you are, right now, imperfections and all.
Countering that inner voice that says you need to earn love by pleasing everyone.
Exactly. That's a direct antidote to the fear. She also talks about the importance of your environment.
Like finding people who do accept you.
Yes. Seek out places and people where you feel seen and accepted. And conversely, learn to set boundaries with people who are consistently critical or demanding. Sometimes the problem isn't just internal.
That's a really important point. It's not always just in your head. And she also echoes the start small idea.
She encourages gradually trying those hard things, those small steps you might avoid because you fear the reaction. Baby steps.
And she mentioned a couple of other terms too. Phobias.
Yeah, she brings up a telephobia, which is a fear of imperfection, and a tychophobia, an intense fear of failure. She offers them as like potential labels or ways to understand the anxiety underneath FODO for some people. Not necessarily that everyone has these phobias, but they might resonate.
Just more ways to understand the shape of the fear.
Right. And she circles back to those societal norms again, reminding us that just because something is presented as normal or right by society doesn't mean it is true for everyone. You have permission to be you.
You're allowed to exist outside the boxes.
Absolutely. So really, the big picture here is that trying never to disappoint anyone is, well, it's impossible and it's bad for you. It stops you from being authentic.
Your needs matter. Your desires matter. Saying what you want or need is okay.
It's more than okay. It's essential for healthy relationships and just, well, a fulfilling life.
So maybe a final thought for everyone listening. As you go about your week, think about this. What's just one small step, maybe a tiny one, you could take to honor one of your own needs, even if there's a slight chance someone else might feel a little bit disappointed?
That's a good challenge.
And just notice how that feels. What happens? What do you learn about your own strength, maybe? Or about the relationship itself? It's definitely something to explore as you continue on your own journey towards, more self-acceptance and peace.
And if you want more insights and tools around inner peace, mindfulness, self-love, that whole journey of personal development, do check out truefulfillment.us.
Yeah, lots more there. And if this deep dive on FODO resonated with you, if it felt helpful, please do like, comment, and subscribe. It helps others find the content too. Thanks so much for listening to The Deep Dive.